Thank you. I'm calling this session of the Board of Revision to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 41st Nation in Treaty 3 territory. With me today are Brett McIntyre and Bill Moretsky. My name is Harvey Diamond. I've been chairing this panel. The City Assessment Department is represented by Stephen Lopenstein, and our administrator is Fran Picotto. We'll be hearing application revision of the assessment rules in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for revision are requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony. Anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised, the comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered as evidence of market value by the Board of Administration. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by council and is independent of it and the city administration, and makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order to be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decision with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or to classification, or to the Court of King's Bench the matter pertains to an application for exemption from taxation. And should you wish to appeal, information how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed to each applicant following their swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will be given an opportunity to summarize if they wish to do so. Once all the evidence upon an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The person will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You receive the board's decision by written mail as soon as possible. As information, all public records are live streamed, recorded, and will form part of a public record. And today we'll be hearing item 2 on our docket. Ms. Picotto, you can affirm the assessors and the applicant's testimony at this time.
Yeah, I would just like to state that item 1, file 24888, has been adjourned to a later date. And Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Stephen Lobenstein.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Grayson Sharples.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the item that we're dealing with now is 100 Hanger Lane, and Mr. Lowenstein, when you're ready, you can proceed with your evidence.
Sure. The roll number is 07042196300 100 Hanger Line Road. We have an assessed value of $2,507,000. Looking at the property descriptions, you can see that it was built in 1996. It has a construction class of S for metal frame. The zoning's M2. We have a land area of 50,723 square feet and a plan and leasable area of 12,000 square feet, which gives us a land to plan area of 4.23. So if you don't mind scrolling down to my page 8, we can see the addenda. We can see where it's located. So this is near the airport. It's on Hanger Line Road. It's actually on the airport ground, so they do have access to the air side and the tarmac to ferry planes in and out. Page 8, you can see an overhead view. The red pin shows the property there, or the building. As you can see in there, you can see the planes that are moving around through the tarmacs. This is a hangar building. So on my page 9, you can see the hangar doors that open and close to allow the planes in and out for maintenance. So it just gives you an idea of the property. So we're going to go back up now to my page 2. You can see that the request for information was received. And then on my page 3, you can see the rent comparables. So the rent comparables, we're looking at similar square footage. We're looking at a close to similar age bill. And then we're also looking at the lease starts and the lease terms, and of course, wall height. So this being a hangar that has very high wall height at 31 feet. A lot of my comparables are industrial properties. They're not hangar properties. So we have one on Clarence, Omens Creek, Cole, Lowson, and King Edward. They're sort of spread across the city because there's not a lot of comparables right in the airport area. We can see the lease starts are 2016 to 2020. The lease terms range from 5 years all the way up to 7 years. And the square footage is fairly similar to the subject property, ranging from 10,000 square feet all the way up to 1,000 square feet. As mentioned before, the wall heights are smaller than the subject property. Some are as low as 14, some are as high as 26. We have effective year of builds that range from 1962 all the way up to 1998, which is the closest to the subject property. And we have rent comparables that range from about $13.63 a square foot on the high end, going down to about $11.18 on the lower end. So it averages pretty close to the subject property, which is at $12.71 a square foot. And that's on my page 2. My page 4. So working to my page 4, you can see the market income workup. So we're using 12,000 square feet for leasable area. It's at $12.71 a square foot. That's our model rent. Our model is based off market comparables as shown above. And we have a potential rent of $152,520. We are applying a 4.5% vacancy rate, 3% expenses, and 4% for a shortfall to give us a net operating income of $139,127. We capitalize that with our capitalization rate of 5.55% to get our capitalized value of $2,507,000, $7,000 rounded. We'll move past page 5 because it's just the income workup again, and we're going to move to the capitalization rate table on page 6. So we can see the industrial chart is second from the top. We're looking between the 20th and the 80th percentile, which is 5.35 and 7.3. So the subject property falls in that percentile at 5.5, although it's on the lower end. It would have a lower cap rate due to its year built in 1996 is a fairly recent property. And we can see we have some outside sources as well, and they range from 5.5 all the way, or 5.25 all the way up to 7.5. So they do fall within the ranges of the outside sources cap rate. And just going further to the end here, we do have a income expense mailer. They say it's not owner occupied and that there is a gross income. Looking further down to my page 11, they state that it's 200. They do have a net operating income of $225,600, but again, this is a gross rental income. It's not net. So we feel that a value of $2,507,000 is fair and equitable and should be confirmed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sharples, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a couple. First one, I believe, just on the first page, actually. Year of construction. So you have the actual and effective year built of 1996.
That's correct.
And I'm just curious because on the breakdown we received, it says 1999. So I'm wondering if you know why there would be a difference in that, or why the document we received has a different year of construction than
your document provided in your brief.
Yeah, it's on our page 4. We 4 and 5 we have the valuation breakdown that we receive. So I mean, in this case, it's only 3 years, but I'm just wondering why that would be different.
I'm not too sure why it'd be different, to be honest. I can't answer that at the moment. I don't think that would have much of an effect on the rental rate or the cap rate, though. Only a 3-year difference.
No, not really. It's just something I noticed and kind of wanted to clarify. Okay. So I guess on page 2, you would have the subject sale history. are you aware of any sales of this property, or did you guys receive?
I wasn't aware of a sale of this property until you brought it up when we spoke before. We received no sales information. There was no sales mailer that we received. I never found any basically literature on the sale. There was no advertisements or anything for the sale, although you stated the sale was in 2019, I believe. So it was quite a while ago. So no, I mean, I was not aware of a sale until you mentioned it.
Okay. And then just looking at the rent comparables on page 3, did you calculate an average of these rents or anything? Just because in looking at them, I think it might be below the 12.7.
Sure, it might be slightly below, but I think it's fairly close. I never did calculate an average.
Okay. And you would agree that the two with 14-foot wall height and even the one at 18 aren't great comparables to an airplane hangar who would need higher wall heights?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to bring in an airplane into a hangar, you need like higher wall height, which is why this is 31 feet. We're using industrial comparables because they are the closest type of building to a hangar. So when we're doing it on the income approach, we need to find rental income, and that's what we're using.
Okay, fair enough. I believe that was all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mariski, do you have any questions?
Yes, on page 4 on your value workup, net operating income on page 4, that is all of the projected income minus all of the projected expenses, correct? Equals NOI.
That's correct.
Okay. Now let's go to your actual, and you made a qualification statement on the total net operating of 225. This is on page 11.
Yep.
225, 600. You made a qualifying statement. Yeah, but it's gross rents. However, is that also not all of the income minus all of the expenses? So aren't we comparing apples to apples there?
Yeah, usually we're comparing apples to apples here when you're taking a gross rent and removing all the expenses. There seems to be, I would argue here, that there are some expenses that seem to be missing that they didn't place in there. So, I mean, this is Winnipeg. I would assume there would be snow removal on a tarmac. I'm not too sure if that's covered by the land lease, as this is the airport, but there's wages and benefits and caretaker maintenance and supplies that weren't included. So there are some expenses here that aren't included that might be inflating the net operating income slightly.
Okay, but if they were including all of the expenses that they should have, when we look at that number, net operating income, and we look at the one that the model puts up, that's an apples to apples comparison. Is that correct?
The model is doing its best to predict a net operating income for a subject property. So when subject properties have net operating incomes, I would agree that it is an apples to apples comparison.
Okay. Understood. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre.
I have no questions, thank you.
Okay. So my question is on the cap rate. I see that the cap rates that the model uses is 5.55, and I'm looking at the tables that you have presented on page 6, and using the city of Winnipeg's parameters, that would put it the cap rate pretty well close to the bottom, or the lowest cap rate that would be available for the property. What would justify the low cap rate?
Well, you're going to be looking at year built, number one, the age of the property. So we're saying 1996. That is a fairly recent built property for the city of Winnipeg. We have a lot of older stock. We're looking at 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. So in 1996 is fairly recent, which would be less risk for a property. At 12,000 square feet, it's not an overly large property compared to other industrial properties that are ranging to 50,000 up to 200,000 square feet. So again, there's less risk with smaller properties. and also its location. This is a property that's in a good part of the city. It has air access to the airport, which is very valuable. So I would say all these sort of justify a 5.5% cap rate.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question. Mr. Sharples, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just being on page 3 of our submission. So again, this is an airplane hangar. We had the year built at 1999. Whether it's 1996 or 1999, it doesn't really make it a huge difference. But the current assessment is for $2,507,000. And we asked the board to consider reducing this to $1,816,000. So as mentioned briefly earlier, we have the snippet that we received of the valuation breakdown on pages 4 and 5. And our requested valuation breakdown is on page 6. So we would be requesting decrease in the rental rate to $10 per square foot. And then we're requesting an increase to the capitalization rate from that 5.55 to 6%. And from that, we've calculated our requested value of $1,816,000. We've provided a few more photos. So on page 7, we have just some satellite images. So again, the property is right off the airport. They do have access to the tarmac. And then some street view photos. Well, I guess one street view photo on page 8 and another satellite image. We have our valuation that begins on page 9. So the first thing we generally do is we pull comparable sales. So the current assessment was for about $209 per square foot. Then we've done a similar thing. So again, there aren't a whole lot of sales of airplane hangars out there. So we did kind of try to look for properties that did have a higher wall height and are fairly close in terms of year of construction. So we've identified sales below. They range in wall height from about 22 all the way up to 31. Year of construction we have from, I believe it's just the late 80s. Yeah, it looks like 87 all the way up till 2011. Some of these are quite a bit bigger. Again, it's just we prioritized the year built and the wall height over the building area. We thought that was more relevant and made it more comparable to an airplane hangar. So some of these are bigger properties, but the sale price per square foot ranges from just a little over $100 to $216 per square foot was our highest one in there. And so from that, we've got an average of about $133 per square foot. So this is quite a bit lower than the current assessment. So based on that, we believe that the assessment value is too high. And then fourth from the bottom here, we have in bold, I kind of referred to this earlier, as the subject property itself was purchased in November 2019 for $1.8 million. And I wish I'd included the email from the owner, but he mentioned that they bought it for $1.8 million. And if we scroll up just to look at this bottom photo on page 8. Actually, let's look at the one on 7, maybe. The bottom of page 7, we see it's kind of the middle hangar. There's kind of one to the south of it, one to the north. Those were both owned by Fast Air, the current owner of the property. So the owner didn't indicate that they paid a premium of a couple $100,000 probably to purchase this. And that's just because it didn't make a whole lot of sense for them to have a competitor of theirs owning and operating out of a hangar that's sandwiched in between two of their own. And again, so that purchase price was for $150 per square foot. So quite a bit lower than the current assessment for the property. And yeah, they did indicate that they paid a premium because it gave them a big advantage over their competitors. And so we have based our value request on the income approach, but just a kind of a note here that the value we're requesting would be $151 per square foot, which we believe fits in more closely with these comparable sales and with the purchase price of the subject property from 2019. And so starting on page 10, we have some photos of these comparables that we've used. And those continue through to page 14. So again, the subject property purchase was the only airplane hangar amongst that group. But as Mr. Lowenstein kind of mentioned, it's harder to find comparables for airplane hangars. So I guess we've also used industrial properties with a focus on the year of construction and wall height. On page 15, we've taken a look at the cap rates. So the assessed cap rate was for 5.55. We took the sales we'd identified above and tried to determine our own cap rate. So we don't have the actual income from these properties, so we kind of have to do our best to estimate it. So for these, we've tried our best to estimate what the rental rates would have been based on comparable leasing. So these, we have a note on the far right of the table of where the rental rate we chose came from. But it's basically all comparable leasing of properties that were very close and that we deem to be similar. Vacancy allowance and operating costs are all from the City of Winnipeg guidelines. And then for 100 Hangar Line, so this is the purchase of the subject property, we used the rental rate of $10 per square foot. I know the assessment department had the income and expense mailer that we talked about. They had it noted as not fully owner occupied, which was interesting to us. It was our understanding that it was them that occupied it. So we didn't have any actual income information from the subject property. So we used the requested rental rate of $10 per square foot, I think, which we'll get into on the following pages. And from that, we calculated a cap rate of 6.06%. And so that's what forms the basis of our request here is that was the only comparable that is an airplane hangar. And it is the subject property. So based on that, we're requesting a cap rate of 6%. Page 16, we look at the rental rate. We have a note here that it was assessed using a rental rate of $13.11. This was a little different than the $12.71 from the assessor submission. I'm not sure if that was just a typo or if the valuation breakdown was incorrect. Yeah, it does look like that's a typo. It was $12.71 per square foot. But we've pulled comparable leasing of similar properties. So again, these are all newer in terms of year of construction. I mean, the oldest one we have in there is 1990. They go all the way to 2007. These are a little more comparable than the sales comparables we had in terms of size. So we do have some smaller ones in here, a little closer to the subject property. And then the wall heights are all fairly high here. I mean, we have the one at 21, one at 23, but we do have 1595 Buffalo Place. This one was built in 2007. It does have the same wall height at 31 feet. And the lease rate for this one was $10.50. And so from these comparables, we got an average rental rate of $9.76 per square foot and a median of $10 per square foot. And so based on these comparables, we're requesting a rental rate of $10 per square foot. And then pages 17 through 20, we have the street view photos of those leasing comparables. And then on page 21, just to summarize, so we do believe that the sales, comparable sales and the purchase of the subject property indicates that the current assessment is too high. And we would request that the board consider changing the rental rate to $10 per square foot, the cap rate to 6%, and with that, a new value of $1,816,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Livingston, any questions?
Yeah, just a few. So you're essentially coming in at the same value as the sale price from 2019.
Pretty close to it, yeah.
So you feel that in the past 5 years, there's been no increase in value to this property?
No, it would have increased in value. Our request was based on the income approach, not the sales approach. So we think the subject purchase price, it is an indicator. It does kind of indicate, I mean, it indicated to us what we thought the cap rate should be. But we used the income approach to come up with our request, and it just happened to line up closely with the sale price.
Okay, do you know if this sale was exposed to the market at all?
I don't.
And yeah, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, any questions?
I just have one question on the comparable sales. Did you make any time adjustments?
No, we did not. So these sales we get our sales from the Johnson report. So these are just the sales prices that are listed in there. I don't believe they're adjusted, no.
So are you aware the reference date is April 1st, 2023?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Thank you. Mr. Moreski, any questions?
Yes, so you don't have any financial information from the owner on this property?
No, we had nothing. It was our understanding that they just occupied it themselves and used it as one of their hangars. I believe they do charter flights. So like in the building that was removed from this docket, we see a pretty nice gate, I guess, if you wanted to call it, kind of like they got a lounge in there and stuff. So it was our impression that they were just using the hangar for their business.
So what do you think then regarding what the city has? There's an income and expense report. Is that from the owner, or do you have any comments on that?
I presume it's from the owner. Yeah, it's definitely something we'll look into after this.
Okay, no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Sharp, was I looking at your, I think it's page 15, your, I guess, calculation of cap rates?
Yep.
So basically, the cap rates that you've derived are all predicated on you having accurate rental per square foot, which you basically didn't have for those properties, so you had to assume. Is that correct?
Yeah, we had to estimate it as best we could based on similar properties in the area.
Okay, and I see that, for example, that you have cap rates then as low as 3.56%. Do you really think that somebody would have bought a property at a cap rate of 3.56%?
No, probably not. I get that is a newer property, I guess. But yeah, that's just what we estimated it to be, I guess.
Yeah, and you go as high as 8.5%, which for a 1989 property in a good industrial area seems to be quite high, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So again, it's kind of tricky. That's kind of why we look at the average and kind of try to help filter out some of those. And then yeah, just because some of those other comparables are all over the place, that's why we've kind of zeroed in on the one for the subject property at 6%. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is, these cap rates are not really accurate.
Yeah, they're estimated.
Okay, that's my only question, and thank you very much, Mr. Sharpo. So that completes our questioning, and I'll give both parties an opportunity of summarizing if they wish to do so.
I have no summation.
Mr. Sharpo, would you like to make a summation?
I have no need either. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, that completes your matters. Thank you very much for your attendance. You'll receive our decision very soon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
we've completed all matters on this and this hearing and are closing the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.